Right now, at the time of recording this video, Bitcoin is about 40 minutes away from the weekly candle close. And this is definitely one of the biggest, most important weekly candle closes we've seen in a long time. The past couple months have been pretty brutal, with Bitcoin seeing 7 consecutive red weeklies in a row, landing us down at prices near 25,300. And the reason why this dump took place was, well, because the stock market played out pretty much the exact same move, with 6 red weekly candles in a row. There is no doubt that there has been a very strong correlation recently between Bitcoin and the stock market. But in today's video, I want to discuss the Bitcoin weekly close and one of my favorite indicators, the Coinbase weekly volume signature. This has been one of the most reliable indicators for pointing out major market bottoms and major market tops for several years. So let's discuss all of this and more in today's video. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Kevin Svenson, and today we're going to be discussing the Bitcoin price and the Coinbase weekly volume. Before we get started, definitely hit the like button and subscribe. Hit that big red subscribe button. Now let's get started. So as we were just discussing, the past couple months has shown tons of similarities with the S&P 500, showing a high degree of correlation. And we do have this chart from Markets in Mayhem, this Twitter account, where he's showing the NASDAQ versus Bitcoin, showing a 0.95% positive correlation since the beginning of the year. Now, before we get into the Coinbase weekly volume chart, just want to really quickly discuss the correlation here. This is Bitcoin in orange and the S&P in blue, showing since the last Bitcoin halving. And the real main point about the correlation, which my regular viewers know, is that when the market is bullish, Bitcoin is less correlated to the S&P, and it kind of does its own bullish things. When the markets are down, when the markets are bearish, Bitcoin becomes highly correlated to the traditional markets, and it's all because of confidence. When there's a lot of confidence, bullish speculators push the price around, letting it do its own thing. When there's less confidence, the price sort of snaps into correlation because speculators use the stock market to gauge their confidence. So we're now at a really interesting point where we're seeing extremely high degree of correlation, and which means that very likely Bitcoin is going to be sort of riding right alongside the stock market. And a lot of what I'm talking about has a lot to do with what the stock market does next. So that's a very important point. We can't just analyze Bitcoin alone. We actually have to really consider what the traditional markets are going to do. But we'll get back to that a little bit later. I want to talk about Bitcoin now in the weekly chart here. We're coming up on the weekly close now, just 35 minutes away as I'm making this video. And Bitcoin is currently sitting at a price on this weekly candle where we have not closed a weekly candle this low since actually 2020. Right here along that run up in December of 2020. After that, going into the new year, we had closes that were all taking place at least 31,800 or so. So this could potentially be the lowest weekly close we've seen in a long time. But the thing that's catching everybody's eye right now is, of course, the Coinbase weekly volume. And these weekly volume signatures have been extremely reliable at calling major market bottoms and major market tops. Just like the 2017 bull market peak, there was a volume signature there. The 6K low point volume signature right there as well. That 3K low in 2018, right around that area, major volume spike right there. And the 2019 14K top, major volume signature associated with that top. The COVID crash right here, major volume signature right there. And then also our 30K bottom right here in 2021, major volume signature there. And of course, if you're looking to the right, we can see that we are once again now getting that type of volume levels. Those types of volume levels are showing up once again for Bitcoin over here at 25K on this recent dip. And so the question is this volume signature giving us the indication that Bitcoin has finally hit the low, that the bottom is in, and that we're ready to go to the moon once again? Or could it be somewhat misleading or somewhat of a fake out? A lot of this is riding on if the stock market is going to go up from here or not. If the S&P plays out a full recovery from this point, then yes, Bitcoin will likely bottom out right here. If the S&P comes up, sees a temporary bounce, Bitcoin may recover, right? But it might be some kind of a fake out. Maybe we go lower as the Fed progressively raises interest rates this year. Then Bitcoin may not actually be at a full bottom just yet. So this weekly volume signature has a high hit rate. Now, of these 7 major weekly volume signatures, about 4 of them were actually a 100% foolproof bottom. And I want to analyze all of the areas where that was the case and all of the areas where it wasn't 100% accurate, though usually it's somewhat accurate, or at least plays a big role for quite some time. Looking over here at the end of the 2017 bull run, seeing how this indicator actually, how reliable it really was, we had our first volume signature up here at the top of the peak of the run right there, right? And that did signal, that was a perfect top signal where we had a volume bar that exceeded all previous levels. And that was a great signal that enough volume came in, enough coins changed hands for that to signal the top. Now the next one was right over here at the 6K low point, where we got a major volume bar that exceeded all previous levels, that kind of rivaled that 20K top level. And this volume bar right here came in right there at about 6,000, or more specifically 5,800, when Bitcoin set in that low point where for the better part of an entire year, that was in fact the bottom. Though it wasn't the ultimate bottom, but it did allow us to hold those levels for quite some time. A lot of coins changed hands at the top, and then we saw Bitcoin dump down, 70% just about from there. And after that 70% fall, enough coins changed hands here for that to be a temporary bottom of major support. And eventually what happened was that support held for a long time. From February all the way into November, that was our low. But eventually the volume died down, the interest was low. And then what happened, guys? What happened in November, December of 2018? Well, the stock market in November, December of 2018 played out this correction, and Bitcoin followed, and Bitcoin and the S&P both hit their low points right there at the same time together, exactly at the same time. Let's hop over here back to 2018. We can see that strong correlation where Bitcoin and the S&P both play out a huge dump into that low point. So when the stock market was dumping, bearish speculators stepped in for Bitcoin as well, and that support did not hold. Eventually, this weekly volume signature did fail. So that was one of those 7 that, worked for a while. Eventually, it wasn't the ultimate low. And then we came down into 2018, November, December, where we got another volume signature that exceeded all levels around it, and that was also not necessarily the bottom. It was that weekly volume signature came in at about 3,500 right here. And that was not the exact bottom, but it was pretty damn close. We went from 3,500 down to about 3,100, though it did signal some kind of low point. It was close, but we actually did go lower than that at some point later. Just a few weeks later, we did go lower. So it was a good bottom signal, not the ultimate bottom. Then moving along over here to the 2019 top, that volume signature exceeds all other previous levels around it. And that volume signature right there did have a perfect signal for our top. That one worked out really well. That was the top, and then we dumped. Then we had the COVID era with massive capitulation. And that was, of course, the bottom. Right? Can't argue that. That exceeded all previous levels around it. And that was, in fact, the bottom. So that worked out pretty well. 2 there in a row. Move over here to where we are today. And then we had the $30,000 low point in 2021. This volume signature right here exceeded all previous levels around it. And it did act as a really good bottom indicator, a really good bottom signal, though we did actually dump slightly lower. So we came down to that point, recovered, it was looking good, and then we came down again just barely below it, though ultimately it was a pretty good signal. But again, we did actually retest the lows and got slightly lower. So you could say it succeeded, but it also kind of failed. It wasn't the actual ultimate bottom. And then it brings us to where we are today, where we have a volume signature here that is exceeding all previous levels, right? So we have this volume signature. What is the story going to be for this weekly volume signature here today? Is this going to be the ultimate bottom, a perfect signal where we just rally up and recover and we never come back down to it again? Or is this going to be one of those ones where Bitcoin maybe tests up, tests a little bit lower, right? Is it going to be something like that? Or is it going to be like 2018 where we maintain it for a while and then dip down a little bit later before then recovering? That's the ultimate question here. And that's a question that, well, I really can't tell you. I don't know. Nobody knows. I'll tell you what, though. Now that we're seeing this volume signature for Bitcoin exceeding all previous levels on the Coinbase chart, if the stock market plays out a rally from this point, that at least this rally, right? At least this will be the bottom for that temporary rally, wherever that may lead us to, right? So at the very least, it'll probably hold as a bottom for quite some time. If the S&P 500 does start to come back down and test lower at a later date, then it's possible that this is not a perfect signal and that more likely we may test just slightly lower than it, maybe towards 20K, 22K, or the 200-week SMA. That is a target that a lot of people have been discussing because we usually bottom out there in bear markets, the 200-week SMA. So, it's possible that we could test slightly lower than that, again, if the stock market were to come down a little bit lower as well. So that's kind of how I see it. There is enough volume here, enough coins have changed hands for this to be at least a temporary bottom. Whether it's the ultimate bottom or not is going to be a matter of the stock market. One of the interesting things about the 2018 era of the stock market is that was our top for Bitcoin. And even though the S&P was rallying during that time, Bitcoin was more or less just maintaining the 6K level during this rally. All right, let's go back to this chart. As Bitcoin was sitting at that flat 6K bottom where we had that weekly volume signature right here, we maintained that low. The S&P was moving up. Bitcoin maintained support until when? Until the S&P reverses down and we break support with it. So these are the types of things that are possible in this environment when you have a major long bull market ahead and then you see some volatility come in. Just how recently we've had a major long bull market and now we're starting to see that volatility kick in. There are many different possibilities here. And one of those possibilities is the S&P plays out a bounce and bullish speculators are not confident enough to play out a major rally. I think that that's a possibility here where we may more or less just be looking to maintain this level before seeing a final dip at a later date and then moving up closer to the halving. Because one thing to remember is that Bitcoin has never played out a bull market without first having that halving give us the green light. Each yellow line is the halving here. All previous bull markets get kicked off by the halving below the previous all-time high, right? Below the previous all-time high. So if we were going to play out the traditional cycle, Bitcoin would be below the previous all-time high right ahead of the halving, whatever that may mean, right? So again, the weekly volume signature is a good one. It's going to at least put in a temporary low in my opinion, but whether it's the ultimate low is something that we're going to have to determine later on at a later date as things develop, and we have to see how the stock market plays out. And of course, we will be analyzing this and determining that over time, but it's definitely not something I can answer right now. I am not God. I don't know the future. We're going to have to wait and see. But it's very interesting to see this happening right here, right now, getting that signal, at least a temporary low, but we'll see how this really plays out. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found it helpful, smash the like button and subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you all in the next video.